Hello, this is Watch All Right with another watch review, and in this review we are looking at another watch by Perpetual Watch. Now, I've reviewed a few of their watches in the past, and I've always found them to be pretty exceptional value for money. So this is the brand new SC-03 model. SC stands for Simple Classic, and as you can see, it is quite a classic vintage-inspired style of watch. And the price on this is $180 or £140 around about. You can buy it direct from them, perpetual-watch.com. And when we think about the specs and what you get for $180, you'll understand why I am so impressed with this watch. First of all, it's an enamel dial, which you don't usually see on watches costing this much. The hands, they're thermally blued, and that is opposed to what you'd usually see, which is just painted, or some sort of coated blue, or even chemically blued. No, these are thermally blued. Sapphire crystal, which is obviously a good plus, and then a mechanical ST-1701 movement as well. So everything is, all the checkboxes are ticked. Looks pretty good. So let's get into the nitty gritty and see if it is good value for money. So if I just pop it on, we'll discuss the specs to start off with. So for reference, I have about a 7¼ inch wrist, 40mm diameter, and a height of 12mm, and a lug-to-lug length of 48mm. So initially, it's reasonably nicely sized, probably a little bit higher than some people would like, because after all, it is a dress watch at the end of the day. However, it's quite a nice curvaceous shape, as you can see here. The actual, despite it being 40mm diameter at the top, the actual bit of case that is in contact with your skin is even less than that. So it does wear less than 40mm. But still, it looks like a decent sized watch, despite it only being 40mm in diameter. You can see it does take up a fair amount of space on my wrist, and that's mainly because of the lug length itself isn't massively long at 48mm. However, the style of the lugs, as you can see, is quite unusual. So I think that does increase the sizing of the watch a little bit, but not in a negative way at all. Weight-wise, it's 84 grams, so really easy to wear, not too heavy at all, but you get a little bit of weight behind it. You can feel it on, and it feels good quality. Water resistance is a mere 3 atmospheres or 30 meters, so that is something definitely you don't want to put it in water, because basically there is no protection there. But that's fine at the end of the day. That doesn't worry me at all. Lug width is 20mm, which is nice and standard. It fits the size of the case well as well, and obviously 20mm is probably the most popular size. 20 and 22mm, one of the most popular sizes of strap going. So if you did want to replace the strap, it will be very easy to find a replacement. And finally, a 2-year warranty as well. The movement is the Seagull ST-1701. Now, whilst this movement itself isn't the most attractive or the most highly regarded, it's solid and it does the job well. Specs include a 21.6 K beat rate, so that runs at about it should run at 6 ticks per second. It doesn't have a hacking seconds hand though, so don't expect to be able to set it to the exact second. And it does have hand wind and automatic winding capabilities. One interesting thing is that Perpetual Watch always regulate their movements. So I've actually measured this one, and it's coming in at a pretty awesome +2 seconds a day, which is pretty staggering, really. So it really does go to show the amount of effort that goes into every watch that they send out. Okay, so let's discuss the watch in further detail, aspect by aspect. So let's start off with the dial. So as I mentioned previously, it is an enamel dial, which provides a really nice, a little bit like ceramic, it has a reflective tendency to it. However, it is like a dull reflection, which is really classy, really elegant. And it's got a certain colour to it as well, one that you don't come across too often. It's not an Arctic stark white. It's very soft and really, really nice to behold. And just the quality of the printing and the finishing of the dial is just fantastic for $180. The print work, obviously, these numerals are quite vintage inspired, no doubt about that. Quite an unusual style. So whether that will be a negative for some, it certainly is going to be one of those things that people will like it or people won't like it. However, I can't knock the build quality, the finishing of the dial as well. So all the print work is perfect. And this sub-dial at 6 as well, that is on an ever so slightly lower level with a very, very gentle concentric circular pattern on it as well. So really nice, very gentle attention to detail there, providing a little bit of depth, a little bit of texture to the dial. Moving on to the hands then. So this was one of the main things that impressed me most. Thermally blued hands. Now, you never see thermally blued hands on a watch costing this much. So thermally blued hands, why are they so special? Well, first of all, they need to be made of steel, proper steel, not just like nickel or anything cheap. First of all, obviously that's more expensive. Secondly, the steel then has to be heated up very precisely to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. And then that is what makes it this beautiful blue hue. And it looks so completely different to chemically blued or lacquered or painted blues, because the entire being, the steel itself changes colour to blue. It's got such a rich, deep colouring to it that you just don't quite realise unless you actually see a steel blued hand. When you hit the light, it just provides such a beautiful flash of blue. As you can see there, a little bit different to seeing it in real life, but you get the impression, you get the idea there if I'm just reflecting it in the light in this room. So it's nice as well because it's quite a subtle blue as well, because at normal angles it just looks like a really dark kind of blue, as you can see from afar, but then you get that beautiful flash when the light does hit it, which you won't get otherwise. The hands themselves, really well manufactured, no complaints there. I like the styling of them as well. We've got this really spectacular spade shape on the hour hand, and then the minute hand has quite an interesting sort of nip in the center, which gives it the impression that it's been twisted. It hasn't been twisted, it is flat, but it's still a nice shape. And then we have a pretty standard leaf shape on the running seconds hand as well. Moving on to the case then. So we have a domed sapphire crystal on top, which is obviously great, a big plus there. And then the case itself, it is, as you can see, double domed. So even if I have it at a tight angle, you still get excellent legibility, which is a good point. So the bezel, the width of the bezel is probably my main, not necessarily concern, but something that I'm not so keen on. I would have preferred a thinner bezel, more dial, make it look a little bit more elegant. I think the bezel visually is a little bit too thick for my personal liking. However, I can live with it. It's still a beautiful watch, but I think if it was a little bit thinner, I think that would have improved the way it looks a little bit. However, I still do like this very soft kind of dent around the bezel. Provides a little bit of interesting a step down there. And then just moving on to the general case finishing, everything is polished, so just be careful of that. It's just such a well finished case, for the price. The crown, nice little onion shape. Excellent grip, so really easy to use with the Perpetual logo engraved on the end there. And then moving on to these lugs. So the lugs themselves are thin and spindly, but then we have these screws. Now, I do see quite a lot these screws are fake. However, on this watch, I mentioned this to Alex from Perpetual Watch, the owner, and he said he doesn't like to put anything fake on a watch. Everything has a purpose, and so these do. So to actually change the strap, you unscrew these screws, and that will allow you to pull out the pin. So again, I wasn't expecting that on a watch costing under $200. So again, that's a really cool plus. Flipping it over to the case back then, where we can obviously see movement, exhibition case back. The window, does a good job. Nice size on sizing in comparison to the movement, and then these details around the outside are very lightly engraved, so perhaps they, if I'm being really picky, maybe they could be deeper engraved, but you know, I'm not, at the end of the day, I'm not that fussed at all about that. So moving on to the movement then, I mentioned the specs earlier, but as you can see, it does have a very small amount of customization to it, mainly in form of this Perpetual logo just stuck on. Not the most exciting, however, it's nice to see a little measure of detail there. Again, not something that I would have necessarily expected on a watch of this value. And you can see we do have a measure of pearlage and detail on the rotor and also the top bridge as well. So again, it's fairly nice to look at. Nothing too extravagant, but you know, for the price, it's not going to be extravagant at the end of the day, isn't it? But it is, you know, a relatively hard-working movement, and you know, it's sure to be pretty hard-wearing moving forward. Oh, another thing I wanted to mention actually is usually on these cheaper watches you tend to get plastic movement holders, mainly because they're cheaper and easier, but on the Perpetual, Alex explained that they're not very good, basically. So he has made sure that there are metal movement holders. You can probably just see the very outside edge of it in there, and it just looks nicer as well, because with the plastic movement holders, they tend to be white and you can see them and they look a little bit cheap and tacky. Right, moving on to the strap then. So if I just pop it on, I always find that the straps are the cheapest thing on a cheap watch, and it's usually the thing where they skimp on. Not the case with Perpetual watch. I've always found the quality of the leather straps are really, really good for the price, and it's no change here as well. Nice and thick, very easy to wear, supple leather. I really like the contrasting white stitching as well. Keeps things interesting, draws your eye up to the white dial as well. And then on top of that, we have a Perpetual engraved logo on the top bar as well of the butterfly clasp. So if I just open it up, pretty standard butterfly clasp, nothing too exciting really, but it's still good to see. And the engraving is all very nice and accurately done on the top bar as well. Okay, so that's everything considered. Let's pop on the macro lens then and have a look at it in much closer detail. So starting off with the dial. So as you can see, we have our nice print work, nice, thick, accurate printing. See our numerals as well. Moving on to our subdial, it's so subtle you may struggle to see it, but we have that concentric circular pattern and also ever so slight lower level as well. And you can see our little seconds hand running, ticking away there with the blue hue working so nicely. Moving on to the main hands. So here's just get that in focus. Here we go. You see the blue of the steel. What a gorgeous hue. Really nicely manufactured as well. And then we have the Perpetual logo again printed really well. So yeah, everything's spotless up close. Really nicely done. Moving on to the case then, if I just give it a very quick wipe. So here's one of the lugs with our screw on the end, which is obviously usable, which is a nice little touch. And then our fully polished case. Here's our ridged bezel, which keeps things interesting. Flipping it over to the other side, here's our crown with our Perpetual logo really deeply engraved on that. Lovely grip on that crown as well, as you can see, really easy to use. Excellent manufacturing on that. And then flipping it over to the case back, let's have a look. So there's the details lightly engraved on the case back, and then flipping it over to the other side, you can see the same. There we go. And then if I just give the exhibition window a very quick wipe, we can have a look at the movement itself. So there's the Perpetual sticker, if you will. Nothing too exciting, however, it's nice to see that little bit of customization there. can see the pearlage on the rotor and also the bridge as well. If I just flip it over, we can see the balance wheel ticking away. If I can just get that in, wedge it in there, there we go, ticking away nicely and happily. And somewhere in the shadows there is the metal movement holder as well. So having a look at the strap, you can see we've got this alligator print. Usually I'm not too fussed about alligator print, but it's done in a nice subtle way. It's sort of like a matte finish to the leather as well. You can see our decent, thick, accurate stitching on there. And if I flip it over, you can see we have Perpetual printed on the underside as well. There it is. And finally, looking at the top bar of our butterfly clasp, you can see it's polished, so it has caught a few scratches already, which is absolutely expected for a fully polished watch and buckle. But you can see there, nice deep engraving there, really impressive attention to detail. Okay, so I hope now you can see why basically, if anyone asks for a recommendation for a watch under $200, Perpetual watches are always one of the first recommendations I make, because they're just such simply staggering value for money. Their availability is quite limited though. That's the only downside, because they are a small workshop. They only manufacture, a small batch at a time. So you do have to be quick. When they do become available, you do have to be quick to get your hands on one. But for the price, for $180 or £140, the level of attention to detail and the specs you are getting is second to none, let me tell you. I think the only thing worth considering is the visuals of it. It is a very specific style. I, for one, really, really like it, but I know for a fact some people, it just won't be to their taste, which is fair enough. We obviously all have certain tastes, and that's going to be the case for every single watch going. But enamel dial, thermally blued hands, a sapphire crystal ST-1701 mechanical movement, and just this level of quality for $180 is just excellent. So if you do like the look of it and one is available, then I just can't recommend it highly enough. And indeed any of their Perpetual watches, because at the end of the day they have mechanical chronographs, they have tourbillons as well. And a couple of other standard styles, which I have also reviewed, like their Power Reserve and a couple of other options they have available, and they're all just brilliant. So give them a check for sure. And it's an excellent watch for the money. So this was the Perpetual Watch SC-03. So thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and also comment. So I'll see you next time. Bye bye.